Mainframe. This version of Vision comes to us from the alternate reality of Earth 691. Here, the world faced devastation when Martians invaded. Knowing Earth would be unable to stop them, instead of staying and doing his best to help people, Vision fled, abandoning billions of people who would end up dead in the battle, including most of Earth's superheroes. Vision also appeared to take with him this alternate Earth's Wonder Man, forcibly teleporting him to safety despite the fact that he wanted to stay and fight to the end. How cruel. Vision then merged his mind with the computerized world known as Klaatu and gave up his body, becoming the all-powerful Mainframe. Number 9. Red Vision. Red Vision comes to us from the Amalgam universe and was an amalgamation of DC's Red Tornado and Marvel's Vision. Similar to Vision's own backstory, Red Vision's backstory was that he was a synthetic man created to infiltrate the heroic Judgment League Avengers, only to later betray them. Although his intended purpose for existing was quite dark, much like his comic book counterparts, he was destined to become a hero. An air elemental took possession of the android body, bonding with it and becoming a hero and a force of good. Number 8. Jonas. Jonas just wanted to be a hero, but alas, in the end, it wasn't meant to be. This alternate version of Vision comes to us from 616 and is actually more an alternate version inspired by the original, but not specifically an alternate version of the main Vision from 616. This alternate Vision is his own person and was created by Iron Lad. He is the brainwaves of Iron Lad and is like the combination basically of Iron Lad and Vision. And it was actually after some soul-searching travels that he decided to name himself Jonas, realizing he himself was neither Iron Lad or Vision, but his own person. Jonas was a member of the Young Avengers and was killed during a confrontation with Dr. Doom and Iron Lad. While fellow teammate and his love interest Cassie Lang, aka Stature, has been returned to life after also dying in that battle, Jonas still remains dead. Sad. Is it also dark that, like, no one has brought him back yet? And before we move on to this next point, just a quick reminder, if you love learning more about Vision, and who doesn't, to give this list a thumbs up. When you like things, it tells us that you want more content like them, so it is really helpful. And it also just helps us out here at the channel, so thank you. 2 visions, or rather 2 attempts. That is to say that when Vision is brought back for the first time in the comics after being dismantled, he doesn't actually come back as the White Vision we saw in Wandavision. The first time Vision is brought back by Hank Pym and Wonder Man, aka Simon Williams, something goes wrong, and he kind of has more of like a boiled down Terminator look going on. Like just Terminator skeleton look with like a little bit of flesh. Vision ends up going berserk and actually attacks Wanda when she tries to reach out to him and connect. His emotions are gone and he's kind of a homicidal maniac. Fortunately, Hank and Wonder Man, with a little bit of help from Hawkeye, managed to get Vision back under control, knocking him unconscious so they could try again. But they also then realized that his personality had basically been wiped clean, which is why he was so defensive when he was brought back to life and reassembled by Hank. So they gotta rework some of that programming a bit. Number 6, White Vision. This version of Vision also comes to us from Earth 616, and while he is still the Vision, it is important to note that the Vision is a character who, within his own history, not even including alternate Earths, has had many versions of himself. Why? Well, because he's a machine who is constantly being destroyed and rebuilt in the comics. Who is the iconic White Vision? Well, White Vision is the version most of us comic book readers see and then think of his time on the West Coast Avengers, which is kind of when this all came about. This version of Vision had basically none of the same memories or emotions as the previous incarnation of himself. He came about after Immortus had kidnapped Vision, took him apart, and then put him back together again, causing a dramatic amount of damage to the synthezoid. Number 5, no one to help! This point has some more specific spoilers for the latest episode of WandaVision, episode 6. So if you haven't gotten there yet, you maybe want to skip this one if you want to avoid spoilers, or if you haven't seen it but you're like, I'm living through the spoilers, man, which is fine. In the latest episode of WandaVision, it's Halloween in Westview as we proceed along our sitcom timeline into the world of basically kind of a Malcolm in the Middle inspired era, which aired actually in the 2000s, despite this episode having a very 90s feel, and despite that series having a 90s feel. Trying to solve the mystery of what's really going on in Westview, Vision lies to Wanda about not being able to join her and the kids trick-or-treating, due to being on duty for Neighborhood Watch. Now, in reality, he actually spends the evening investigating Westview and eventually finds the town's reality warping barrier, which he attempts to cross, not knowing that this will likely end up killing him. As outside of this altered reality, which it's hinted at is numbered as to a 3800 in the MCU, despite the fact that I think that number's already taken in the comics, Vision is in fact dead. When he moves to leave the town, we watch as he struggles against the magical barrier, which obviously very much wants to keep him within town limits. Sword watches as he attempts to move into their world, seeing him fall to pieces, slowly dissolving in front of them. And as a handcuffed Darcy Lewis shouts for them to do something, like help this man. But that doesn't end up happening. They just run. In the end, it's up to Wanda to save the day when Billy alerts her that he senses that his dad is in danger. Wiccan to the rescue. Number 4, antivision, which is basically just another name for evil vision, right? Anytime an anti-version of someone shows up, especially in this case where they are a hero usually, you should be wary of them. And yes, such was the case with this alternate version of Vision. This Vision from an alternate reality was allied with an alternate evil version of Dane Whitman, who was actually from a different reality and was known as Proctor. For those not familiar with Dane Whitman in the main continuity, he is known as the hero Black Knight. Antivision was in league with Proctor, working to help him eliminate all versions of Cersei across timelines and alternate realities. Not Cersei like Game of Thrones Cersei. In the Marvel universe, Cersei is actually a hero and member of the Eternals. Usually if you are involved in an assassination plot, by the way, especially if someone who is typically allied with a group of heroes, you're considered evil. Yeah. Number 3, all-new, all-white Vision. If you were wondering why Vision lost his bright color palette, in the comics it's explained as happening as a result of his biosynthetic skin being removed. It was basically badly damaged during the dismantling process when it was ripped off of him. And that damage meant that now Vision's colors, like his personality, would be much less vibrant. I like to think of this as in stories when people get like super shocked and then their hair turns white. And I think that can also happen in life too, if you experience a ton of shock. Many people have also seen the change in his coloring as symbolism for what was going on for the character in terms of his personal development. Vision would be without his emotional attachment to the information that he had. His programming wiped clean and kind of left him a blank slate, which Hank did his best to rebuild. While Vision had returned, the change in color indicated that he wasn't the same Vision, and implied that he actually may never be who he was again, as he started fresh and started anew. We're gonna see him become someone different this time around, potentially. Number 2, Robert Mitchell. This alternate version of Vision comes to us from the alternate universe of Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe. There are actually a few different versions of Vision in that alternate universe, but for the purpose of our list, we're actually gonna be talking about this version of Vision, Robert Mitchell. Robert Mitchell was apprehended by S.H.I.E.L.D. after they found him making powerful bombs. Nick Fury, thinking he could be of use, decided to put him on his West Coast Ultimates team, and Robert was mutated so that he would get powers. His hero codename would become Vision. However, the West Coast Ultimates proved to be too dangerous a team, and so they ended up being pulled from the field and put in stasis tubes. Later on, Vision was used by a California spokesperson trying to get California to basically break away from the USA and sort of become its own nation. His plan was to have Vision reprogram a satellite to fall on California, making it look as though Captain America and the United States government had attacked the state. Number 1, Marvel Zombies. Vision's story in the Marvel Zombies universe appears to be a bit conflicting, depending on what you've read. We know he was at the Avengers mansion when Ashley Williams first shows up, and later on he appears to either have been zombified, reprogrammed to assist the zombie horde, or kidnapped and used by the zombie horde for his parts and capabilities as a synthezoid. He also at one point was recruited by Nick Fury as part of the Resistance to fight against the zombie plague in what Fury believed was a full-on apocalypse scenario. Boy, was Nick Fury right. Either way you look at it though, Vision's life inevitably ends up pretty dark here, with the one event where he is being used as a technological tool being one of the most dark scenarios. Plugged in and appearing to be somewhat disassembled, Vision is no longer able to move at that point. It's zombie Scarlet Witch's job to get Vision to do what she wants, using his love for her as motivation. Here, it's not human flesh he craves, but kisses. He just wants those zombie kisses. Poor Vision. Scarlet Witch, give him like at least a little zombie kiss. Come on, he's helping you out. I just love how Wanda's like, no, I have a headache. Although to be fair, I imagine if you were a zombie and you hadn't eaten in a while, you probably would have a really bad headache, so it's also a legitimate excuse. Number 10, Stan Lee's ire. Initially, Vision wasn't loved by all at Marvel's offices. In fact, Marvel legend Stan Lee hated the look and the name of the character apparently when he was first created in 1968 by John Buscema and Roy Thomas. Apparently, Stan complained to Roy about the choice of color for the android, not liking the look of his bright red appearance, and also felt the name was not a good fit, not strong enough for the character. Today, his appearance has become iconic, and we think nothing of it. But back when he was first created, it wasn't just with comic book characters that his existence was considered controversial. Number 9. Death of his first creator. Despite the fact that we often attribute Vision's existence to Ultron, he wasn't the only one involved in his creation process. And no, I'm not talking about Tony Stark here. Professor Phineas Horton was forcefully recruited by Ultron into helping him create the synthezoid we later came to know as the Vision. Vision, in fact, was originally given the memories of Professor Horton's previous android creation, which brought on the rage of Ultron, who had specifically told Horton to wipe those memories. He's like, you do it or you're dead. And Horton was like, we'll see. Ultron, of course, did kill the professor, though, creating probably one of the first tragic moments in Vision's life to come about. At the time, the synthezoid mourned the life of his creator and swore to get revenge on Ultron. And before we move on to this next spot, just a quick reminder, if you are enjoying this video and you want more like it, talking about Wanda or Vision or both of them together, romantic moments, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help us out on the channel. Number 8, no sense of normalcy. Despite the fact that he might seem cold and seems to embrace his synthetic nature, Vision actually constantly strives to fit in. When Wanda and Vision first got married in the comics, they both sought to find normalcy together by settling down in a suburban neighborhood. Oh, it's so nice. Similar to what we've seen the couple attempts in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the Disney Plus show WandaVision. Yeah, if you like WandaVision and you want to sort of read more things that maybe have inspired it, this is a miniseries you're going to want to read. The two of them, however, it seems were never fated to have a normal life, and try as they might, strange events always seemed to disrupt their attempts and lurk around every single corner. For an example of what I'm talking about, you need not look further than the first issue of their miniseries together from the 80s, The Vision and Scarlet Witch. Seriously though, check out this miniseries. On Halloween, a quiet night in quickly turns into something out of a nightmare, ending with a visit from Scarlet Witch's often villainous then-father, Magneto. So it becomes more of a nightmare, I imagine. Number 7, MCU. Yep, the Marvel Cinematic version of Vision is not much brighter than any of the others out there. In this reality, Vision was created by Ultron just like in the comics, but instead of Vision being like his son, made to destroy the Avengers, he was meant to be a form for Ultron to actually occupy. Stealing the body of what would become Vision, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner managed to upload what remained of Tony Stark's AI, Jarvis. What was born out of that body and AI was something new. The new being took the name Vision and agreed to help the Avengers in their quest to protect humanity and defeat Ultron. Vision would later be killed by Thanos, and the way he went was pretty dark. After Princess Shuri of Wakanda failed to safely remove the Mind Stone in time, Scarlet Witch, Vision's lover, was forced to kill him in order to prevent Thanos from getting the Infinity Stone that granted Vision life. However, Thanos used the Time Stone, which he had already secured, to rewind time and bring Vision back to life so he could pull the intact Mind Stone from his head, killing him much more painfully and right in front of Wanda Maximoff. Yikes. Currently, some form of Vision appears to exist once more in WandaVision, though it was heavily implied that this was just Vision's corpse, which Wanda perhaps stole and was willing or unwillingly manipulating with her powers to make him seem alive. However, in the latest episode, we found out that's not exactly what happened, but I won't spoil it for you just yet if you haven't seen it. But yeah, even Vision's existence in WandaVision, it's all pretty dark. Number 6, From the Torch to Wonder Man. The first Human Torch was not actually Johnny Storm, but was an android created by Professor Phineas Horton himself. Ultron, wanting to make his own such creation, kidnapped the professor and forced him to build an android being for Ultron's own purposes, which we talked about a little bit earlier. The professor, of course, modeled the synthezoid after his own creation, but a little too closely for Ultron's liking, as I said, bestowing the Human Torch's memories as well to the creation we'd later come to know as Vision. Brought to life, this being attacked Ultron, who had killed the professor as punishment for his betrayal. Unfortunately, Torch Vision, this version of Vision, was no match for Ultron, and in the end he actually ended up being reprogrammed by Ultron to follow his orders and was given the brain patterns of Wonder Man. Nothing against Wonder Man, by the way, but sharing brain patterns with that hero would cause lots of weirdness for Vision and for Scarlet Witch as well later on down the line. I feel like if you get to pick who you want to share brain patterns with, Wonder Man's not at the top of the list. Also, it's really weird that like Wonder Man's brain patterns were just lying around Hank Pym's lab in like a little recorder device. Like, why did you have those, Hank Pym? What's going on? Number 5, Wonder Man's true motivations. While Wonder Man's explanation for not lending his brain patterns to White Vision because he felt as though his own soul had been violated in the process of creating Viz the first time around was, I'm sure, true, when it came down to it, Wonder Man kind of kept himself out of the process to give himself a better shot at Scarlet Witch, who he'd always had a thing for and was madly in love with, which it's actually theorized is why former Vision was so enamored with Scarlet Witch as well. Wonder Man keeping his brain patterns to himself would of course make it almost impossible for Vision and Scarlet Witch to ever really reconcile, and eventually this would also lead to Wanda finding love and happiness with Simon, meaning that Wonder Man would in essence get what he always wanted, Scarlet Witch's love and affection. Wonder Man later on would die, and Wanda would actually bring him back in a way similar to what we saw her do with her own version of Vision, Fake Vision, in the show. Number 4, manipulated into being a villain. I really do feel for Vision. Most of the most terrible things that have happened to him in the comics or otherwise are honestly my worst nightmare, which is being controlled by other people. In this case, we're talking about when he was sent in to kill the Avengers and seemingly in some kind of murderous trance. Once the team attempted to reason with him, it became apparent that this synthozoid enemy wasn't all he appeared to be, and in fact that he might not truly be acting of his own volition. In the end, Vision would end up becoming an ally to the Avengers, fighting against his instincts to do them harm. They'd actually help him by deprogramming his murderous urges, and he would eventually go on to join the Avengers outright, fighting many times against his creator and father, Ultron. Many times. Many times. Ultron never stays dead. Number 3, Ultravision. This alternate version of Vision can be found in the What If series from the 90s in issue 19. Here we see what would happen if Vision ended up conquering the world. In the first story that we're offered that takes a look at this, we see actually how much better the world could be under his rule. Vision rids the globe of hunger and war and leads the Avengers in a successful battle to prevent an alien invasion. However, the B side that we are offered is a lot more dark. This alternate version of Vision is known as Ultravision. Actually, I think both versions are known as Ultravision, but the second one inspires a lot more of a hostile reaction from the world when he appears on all the world's screens and in all the computers. In an attempt to destroy the Vision, the rulers of Genosha attempt to destroy New York, where Vision's mainframe resides in the Avengers Mansion. Millions die in this attack, including almost all of the superhero community, and oddly enough, the mission actually fails to defeat Vision, who is already residing deep in the world's computers. So he still lives after it. So they basically killed a bunch of people for no reason. Number 2, death. While those who only knew Vision from the MCU might think of his tear-jerking demise in Endgame, comic fans know that a fate worse than being destroyed, at least the first time around, awaited him in the comics. Here, instead of Wanda destroying him at his own request, urging her on with words of affirmation and love, Vision ends up being controlled against his will by her, which leads to him ending up in a direct conflict that he doesn't actually want any part of, which ultimately leads to his very gruesome death. Not only does he melt and vomit up silver pods, which transform into Ultron bots, but overkill comes into play when She-Hulk then decides to go into a rage and ends up tearing him down the middle, which is a pretty epic and permanent kind of on-panel death. Although, of course, even if you get ripped down the middle, that's probably not the end of you, because comics. Vision is still a synthetic being, and he can be recreated. So don't worry, he would be rebuilt, and he would return once more. But what a death to come back from. Number 1, Weaponized. During the events of Avengers Disassembled, which led right into House of M, Wanda ended up suffering from a mental break, and as such ended up turning on her fellow Avengers. You'd think Vision, being one of the Avengers who, is married to Wanda, would be safe, but no. Wanda ended up not only getting him killed, but it was the way in which she did it, I think, that just really cut him deep. She didn't just put him in the right places to be torn apart by She-Hulk, but she actually turned him into a weapon to be used against his friends and teammates, the Avengers. Vision actually warned them when he came to them that he was no longer in control of his body before vomiting up those pods, which turned into Ultron robot drones, who then attacked the Avengers after their mansion had already been attacked. This was just a real bad day all around for the whole team. When Vision returned to life and Wanda much later came to ask for forgiveness, it would actually be this memory that would prevent him from being able to forgive his wife, Scarlet Witch. He was like, I can forgive the fact that you had a mental break, but you literally turned me against my friends and made me like hurt them, and some of them died. It's like pretty crazy. Number 10, Canadian Secret Service. Who's responsible in the comics for giving us this version of Vision? That is a complicated question to answer, because it actually was a bunch of people who appeared to be someone that they weren't. The people who kidnapped Vision approached Mockingbird initially for her help and appeared to her to be working for the usual secret organization that we all suspect, S.H.I.E.L.D. After she found out their true plot, however, she was locked up and realized based on the appearance of her cell alone that they were actually KGB. Later on, we discovered that it wasn't KGB, but actually a Canadian spy working for the Canadian Secret Service in league with various other operatives from secret services all over the world. Together, they created a group known as Vigilance, who were formed after Vision had revealed how powerful he was when he took control of the world's computers. Hold on, do we even have a Secret Service here in Canada? Oh, apparently we do. You'd think we'd be one of the least secretive acronyms out there, CSI, but they're actually the CSIS, Canadian Security Intelligence Service. I also just love how secret intelligence operations are still Googleable. Are they really that secret then? Number 9, Immortus. That's right, while Vigilance was responsible for the actual deed of capturing and dismantling Vision, they in turn were being manipulated into doing so by one of the Avengers' biggest bads in comics, Immortus. Immortus is a time-traveling villain who is known by many different names, including Kang the Conqueror, depending on where he is in his own timeline when he shows up. In the comics, it was revealed that the true identity of this villain was none other than the young hero Iron Lad all grown up. Many therefore speculate that White Vision's appearance in the MCU could therefore imply that Immortus or Kang, who we know will appear in the next Ant-Man film, could actually be responsible somehow for manipulating S.W.O.R.D's actions, influencing them from behind the scenes to create White Vision and go after Wanda. It's all part of his master plan, since in the comics it was Immortus all along for this plot. Not Agatha all along for this one. I know, disappointing, because I like that song. Number 8, dismantled scene in Wandavision. While I have speculated a few times in the past about what the true identity or allegiance of director Tyler Hayward is in Wandavision, is he working for or some other version of Kang? Is he part of AIM? Is he Mephisto? This time around, when it comes to a specific scene, though, in WandaVision, compared to the comics, Hayward actually plays the role of Mockingbird. Huh? Near the end of issue 43 of the West Coast Avengers, you see Mockingbird lead Scarlet Witch to where her husband is being kept, only for it to be revealed that he has been completely and utterly dismantled. Oh no. Better a widow. Actually, a much more gruesome scene in comparison to the version we saw in the show, in my opinion. Here, however, Mockingbird isn't trying to keep Wanda from Vision. She's returned to the Avengers team to try and help them after being led astray by someone who she thought worked for S.H.I.E.L.D., but who was in reality using her as a pawn. So a similar role, really, only in terms of their purpose in that one scene, as Hayward definitely does not seem to want to help Wanda when she bursts into S.W.O.R.D. looking to reclaim Vision's lifeless body after the events of Infinity War and Endgame. Well, I mean, I think he does want to help her. He wants to help her bring Vision back, I think, but he doesn't want to, like, give her Vision's body to bury. He's like, no. Number 7, being controlled. The smallest spoilers ahead for WandaVision if you know nothing about it, but mostly this part is pretty safe as we'll just be focusing kind of on the premise of the show and what we know of it so far based on what has been implied in the episodes. So it's more of like a, if you know the show, you probably know this. In WandaVision, it's implied that Scarlet Witch, Wanda herself, is in complete control of everything going on in Westview, including Vision's appearance and existence there. After all, as we talked about before, Vision's appearance there likely means that Wanda manipulated him and brought him back to life, possibly even reanimating his lifeless corpse. Yikes. As the show unfolds, Vision becomes more suspicious of his life in Westview and Wanda and her involvement not just in it, but in manipulating it as well with her reality-altering powers. Also, I never noticed this before, but Westview's name actually seems to be a reference to the initial of the main characters of the show and the show title itself. Westview, WV. Wandavision, WV. Interesting. Also, it's weird that it took me so long to notice that, but I just noticed it today, so I was looking for all kinds of other explanations as to what Westview meant. I never thought about, like, the initials. Number 6. No emotions. The second time that Hank brought Vision back, he managed to reprogram him with all the information he would need about the Avengers so that he would come back as an ally, a friend, a hero, much closer to his older self, but something huge was still missing. In the MCU, it's likely that Vision's Mind Stone will be that vital ingredient, but in the comics, it was actually his brain patterns or his brain waves, which were taken from Simon Williams, aka Wonder Man, when he was originally created. Unfortunately, this time around, Simon didn't want to cooperate. He felt that his brain waves, which gave Vision his soul, had been taken without his consent before, and this time he didn't want to give them up, feeling it was kind of like a violation of his own soul. And so the Vision came back without any emotions. Even though Wanda tried to be like, but he's my husband and I love him, please help. Simon was like, yeah, he's like my brother, but no. Number 5, The Last Avengers. This version of Vision comes to us from the Last Avengers story series. Here, something so traumatic happened one day that Vision basically just gave up on living. He stayed permanently phased and let his molecules drift far apart, making it near impossible for anyone to track him down. However, the Avengers needed him in one final fight, and so the daughter of Wyatt Wingfoot and She-Hulk, Jessie, and Hank Pym attempted to find him so that he could join them in one final stand. Tommy, Vision's son, however, who now appears in the future to have become Sorcerer Supreme, shows up at the last minute with more exact calculations to help them, having been trying to locate his father ever since he went missing years ago, following the tragic event which seems to have happened at Tommy's wedding. What happened to make Vision completely lose it? It seems that Quicksilver killed Scarlet Witch. Vision's other son, Billy, also ends up becoming the villain Grim Reaper in this reality and joining forces with Kang the Conqueror. Now, in case you're wondering, yeah, in this reality, Tommy is the one who inherits his mother's mystical powers. And if you're thinking, oh man, I just got the names mixed up, I didn't. It's weird in this reality and they're kind of swapped. Tommy's magical, Billy's a villain. It's weird, but that's why it's an alternate reality. Anything can happen there. Number 4, Arc Reactor? Some theorize that in the middle of White Vision from the MCU's forehead, where the Mind Stone would normally be, he instead has an arc reactor. It lies just beneath the surface of his synthetic skin, making it kind of hard to see whether the triangular light is actually an arc reactor or not. If it were though, it could be being used to continually power White Vision, whereas Wanda's chaos magic taken from the drone was simply the kickstart they needed as to the full power source, similar to what Thor's hammer provided when Vision was initially created in the Age of Ultron. We know that Wanda, after all, has the full potential of her powers unlocked by the Mind Stone, and the Mind Stone played basically a big part in giving Vision life. This would also make a ton of sense that Wanda's magic is connected to that stone, considering that when she destroyed Vision the first time around, it didn't hurt him. He said that he felt only her. It would also make sense as to why she perhaps can't sense Vision when she visits his corpse at Sword headquarters, because he no longer has the Mind Stone. They are both connected to the Mind Stone. But if it is an arc reactor supplying the constant power and not Wanda's magic, then what does this mean for their future connection? Also, how did Sword get Stark's technology? Will we potentially see the Armor Wars story arc find its way into the MCU? Number 3, infected with a Hydra virus. During the events of Secret Empire, Steve Rogers would end up having his whole life history rewritten and be revealed as a long-time sleeper agent for Hydra. Our heroes would, however, find out too late about Rogers' true allegiances, and so Captain America would become Captain Hydra, or Hydra Supreme, and would take over the United States of America for the glory of Hydra. But he would also end up recruiting some of Earth's mightiest heroes besides, including Scarlet Witch and Vision. But how did he convince them to join the side of evil? Well, he didn't. For Wanda, Hydra actually awoke Chthon within her in order to take control of her body and make use of her powers. And if you want to learn more about Chthon and that whole thing, you can check out the worst things that happened to Wanda's list, where we talk about that a bit more. For Vision, being a synthezoid, they merely infected him with a virus. That was easy. And although Vision tried to fight it, he remained unable to break free and fight against Hydra until near the end of the event. like the second last issue, I believe, in the main one. Secret Empire number 9. Number 2, Vision's marriage. White Vision still respected Wanda and their relationship, but he couldn't love her. It wasn't possible due to his lack of emotional response. This caused a great amount of distance to open up between the couple, and put a lot of strain on their relationship. Eventually, the two would break up, with Vision heartlessly doing so over the phone, asking Wonder Man to kind of pass the message along, basically to Wanda while she was in recovery. We see this difficult time in their relationship revisited in Tom King's Vision, when Scarlet Witch pleads with Vision to explain what has happened to him to their children, and Vision basically responds that they're no longer his children. You can check out this heartbreaking moment in issue 7 of 2016's Vision series, and the brutal breakup moment in issue 63 of Avengers West Coast, the renamed but continuation of the 80s West Coast Avengers series. Avengers West Coast, I feel like, is a weird name change that they did, but hey, it happened. Number 1, Vision Quest. If you really want to get up to speed about exactly how White Vision came to be and was resurrected and created, an important story to touch on in the comics would be the West Coast Avenger arc, Vision Quest. This story took place from issue 42 to 45 of the 1985 West Coast Avengers comic series. And if you've been checking out all the lists, they've probably brought it up before, but yeah, you should go and read it. Seriously, go back, read it, check it out. It follows the journey of Scarlet Witch as she searches for her missing husband and discovers that he was kidnapped and dismantled. We then see Hank Pym and Wonder Man do their best to reconstruct Vision and follow along as a new version of him is reborn. For the beginnings of this chapter in Vision's life, this is one of the best places to start. And then you can kind of go out from there, because yeah, there is quite a few White Vision things that happen after that.